Swagatam, Suswagatam. Welcome. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Om Agyan Timirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Shakshu Militam Yena Tashnai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Statutam Nabhutale Swayam Rupam Kadamayam Dadati Shvatadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tapadakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shah Shri Pa Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Tam Tam Samjivam Sadgaitam Sadavatam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitam Shah He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Rupesha Kanta Radha Tata Kanchana Gurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanusute Devi Pranami Hariye Vanchakalpatarudasya Kripasindhurecha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnaveyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavatam 9-7. Actually, we're going to do 7 today. So, should we start off from the beginning of the chapter? Yeah. Chapter 7 of the 9th canto, the descendants of King Mandata. In this chapter, the descendants of King Mandata are described, and in its connection, the histories of Purukutsa and Harishchandra are also given. The most prominent son of Mandata was Ambarish. His son was Yoganashva, and Yoganashva's son was Harita. These three personalities were the best in the dynasty of Mandata. Purukutsa, another son of Mandata, married the sister of the snakes, Sarpagan, named Narmada. The son of Purukutsa was Prasadasyu, whose son was Anaranya. Anaranya's son was Aryashva. Aryashva's son was Parun. Parun's son was Tribandana, and Tribandana's son was Satyavrat, also known as Trishanku. When Trishanku kidnapped the daughter of a Brahmin, his father cursed him for this sinful act, and Trishanku became a Chandala, worse than a Shudra. Later, by the influence of Vishwamitra, he was brought to the heavenly planets. But by the influence of the demigods, he fell downwards. He was stopped in his fall, however, by the influence of Vishwamitra. The son of Trishanku was Harishchandra. Harishchandra once performed a Rajasuya Yajna, but Vishwamitra cunningly took all of Harishchandra's possessions as a dakshina contribution and chastised Harishchandra in various ways. Because of this, a quarrel arose between Vishwamitra and Vashishtha. Harishchandra had no sons, but on the advice of Narada, he worshipped Varun, and in this way got a son named Rohit. Harishchandra promised that Rohit would be used to perform a Varun Yajna. Varun reminded Harishchandra repeatedly about this Yajna, but the king, because of affection for his son, gave various arguments to avoid sacrificing him. Thus, time passed, and gradually the son grew up. To safeguard his life, the boy then took bow and arrows in hand and went to the forest. Meanwhile, at home, Harishchandra suffered from dropsy because of an attack from Varun. When Rohit received the news that his father was suffering, he wanted to return to the capital, but King Indra prevented him from doing so. Following the instructions of Indra, Rohit lived in the forest for 6 years and then returned home. Rohit purchased Shunashifa, a second son of Ajigartha, and gave him to his father. Harishchandra, as the sacrificial animal, repeat the sentence. Rohit purchased Shunashifa, the second son of Ajigartha, and gave him to his father Harishchandra as the sacrificial animal. In this way, the sacrifice was performed. Varun and the other demigods were pacified, and Harishchandra was freed from disease. In this sacrifice, Vishwamitra was the Hota priest, Jamadagni was the Advayu, Vashisht was the Brahma, and Ayasya was the Udgata. King Indra, being very satisfied by the sacrifice, gave Harishchandra a golden chariot, and Vishwamitra gave him transcendental knowledge. Thus, Shukdev Goswami describes how Harishchandra achieved perfection. Okay. So, which verse is on the board?
971.
971.
1.
Okay. So we will repeat this one. Shri Shukho Raja Mandatu Putra Pravaro Yombarisha Prakirtitaha Pitamahena Pranito Yuvanasvas Utatsutaha Haritas Tasya Putro Bun Mandatri Pravarene Shri Shukavacha Mandatu Putra Pravaro Yombarisha Prakrititaha Pitamahena Pravrito Yovanasvas Utatsutaha Haritas Tasya Putro Bhum Mandatri Pravarene. Please. Shri Shukavacha Mandatu Putra Pravaro Yombarisha Prakirtita Pitamaena Pravrito Yovanasvas Utatsutaha Haritas Tasya Putro Bhum Mandatri Pravarene
Mandatu Putra Pravaro Yombarisha Prakirtita Pitamahena Pravrito Yovana Svastutaha Haritas Tasya Putro Bhum Mandatri Pravaraime
Shri Shukavacha Mandatu Putra Pravaro Yombarisha Prakritidaha Pitamahena Pravrito Yonanashvat Utatsutaha Haritas Tasya Putro Bhum Mandatre Pravarahime
Messages.
Shri Shukavacha Mandatu Putra Yombarisha Prakirtita Pitamahena Pravrito Yovanasvas Utatsutaha Haritas Tasya Putro Bhum Mandatri Pravarene Shri Shukavacha Shri Shukadev Goswami said Mandatu of Mandata Putra Pravara the prominent son Yaha the one who Ambarisha by the name Ambarish Prakirtitaha celebrated Pitamahena by his grandfather Ivanashva Pravrita accepted Yovanashva named Yovanashva to and Tatsutaha the son of Ambarish Harita by the name Harita Tasya of Yovanashva Putra the son Abut became Mandatri in the dynasty of Mandata Pravrara most prominent Ime all of them. Translation verse 1 Shukdev Goswami said the most prominent among the sons of Mandata was he who is celebrated as Ambarish.
Ambarish was accepted as son by his grandfather Yuvanashva. Ambarish's son was Yuvanashva, and Yuvanashva's son was Harita. In Mandata's dynasty, Ambarish, Harita, and Yuvanashva were very prominent. Verse 2. No purple. Verse 2. The serpent brothers of Narmada gave Narmada to Purukutsa. Being sent by Vasuki, she took Purukutsa to the lower region of the universe. Purport. Before describing the descendants of Purukutsa, the son of Mandata, Sukadeva Goswami first describes how Purukutsa was married to Narmada, who was induced to take him to the lower region of the universe. Verse 3. There, in Rasatal, the lower region of the universe, Purukutsa, being empowered by Lord Vishnu, was able to kill all the Gandharvas who deserved to be killed. Purukutsa received the benediction from the serpents that anyone who remembers this history of his being brought by Narmada to the lower region of the universe will be assured of safety from the attack of snakes. 4. The son of Purukutsa was Trasadasyu, who was the father of Anaranya. Anaranya's son was Aryashva, the father of Prabhu. Prabhu was the father of Tribandana. 5 and 6. The son of Tribandana was Satyavrat, who is celebrated by the name Trishanku. Because he kidnapped the daughter of a Brahmin when she was being married, his father cursed him to become a Chandala, lord and a Shudra. Thereafter, by the influence of Vishwamitra, he went to the higher planetary system, the heavenly planets, in his material body. But because of the prowess of the demigods, he fell back downward. Nonetheless, by the power of Vishwamitra, he didn't fall all the way down. Even today, he can still be seen hanging in the sky, head downward. It's a constellation, actually, that can be seen in Australia. It's a cross. It's got the shape of a cross. Still, Bhagavatam is never wrong. Buddhism Prabhu told us, he lives in Perth, in Australia. He told us this is partially visible in Australia, this constellation. 7. The son of Trishanku was Harishchandra. Because of Harishchandra, there was a quarrel between Vishwamitra and Vashisht, who for many years fought one another, having been transformed into birds. Purport. Vishwamitra and Vashisht were always inimical. Formerly, Vishwamitra was a Kshatriya, and by undergoing severe austerities, he wanted to become a Brahmin. But Vashisht would not agree to accept him. In this way, there was always disagreement between the two. Later, however, Vashisht accepted him because of Vishwamitra's quality of forgiveness. Once Harishchandra performed a yajna for which Vishwamitra was the priest, but Vishwamitra, being angry at Harishchandra, took away all his possessions, claiming them as a contribution of Dakshina. Vashisht, however, didn't like this, and therefore a fight arose between Vashisht and Vishwamitra. The fighting became so severe that each of them cursed the other. One of them said, "May you become a bird," and the other said, "May you become a duck." Thus, both of them became birds and continued fighting for many years because of Harishchandra. We can see that such a great mystic yogi as Sobari Muni became a victim of sense gratification, and such great sages as Vashisht, Vishwamitra became birds. This is the material world. Abrahma Bhuvana Loka Punaravartino Arjun. Within this material world or within this universe, however elevated one may be in material qualities, one must suffer the conditions of birth, death, old age, and disease. Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi. Therefore, Krishna says that this material world is simply miserable. Dukhalaya Ashasha. Bhagavatam says, Padam Padam Yadni Padam. At every state there is danger. Therefore, because the Krishna consciousness movement provides the opportunity for the human being to get out of this material world simply by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. This movement is the greatest benediction to human society, in human society. So it seems complicated. We're entering next chapter, descendants of King Mandata. So just to situate this in terms of the genealogy, basically in this universe there's two Vamshas. What are the two Vamshas in this universe? And Chandra. So here we're talking about which Vamsha? Surya Vamsh. We are in the line of Lord Ramachandra, but way above, way up, way before the father and Dasharat and Lord Ramachandra. Way before, way up. First thing, we should not confuse this Maharaj Ambarish with the great one. Be careful here, it's a different one. The other Maharaj Ambarish, who is Madhpara Bhakta, he's in the line of Kashyap. He goes, Vivashwan, Kashyap, then Nabag, then another Nabag, then Ambarish. Different line altogether. Be careful, this is not the same. Here we are talking about King Mandata, very great king. So let's try to make it simpler. So Mandata he had one son with Ambarish, the other Ambarish. And the father of Mandata was Yuvanashva. The son of Ambarish was Yuvanashva, and then it goes like this, Harit, etc. So at one point, Maharaj Mandata had different wives, and with another wife he had a son called Purukutsa. And lo and behold, it's quite mind-boggling. The brother of the snakes, they arranged their sister to marry that Purukutsa. And she was called Narmada. Actually, Narmada is a river in India. And she took her newly bred husband to the lower region, Rasatal. So then Purukutsa there, he settled with his wife in Rasatal, lower region. And he was kind of empowered by Lord Vishnu. He started killing all the Gandharvas, those who deserve to be killed. And whoever remembers this Leela of Purukutsa, will be blessed by Lord Vishnu that he will escape the snake's bite. So then let's go on. Purukutsa, then the genealogy further down from Purukutsa. I'm not going to name it again, there's so many kings coming down after him. Then we're coming to Satyavrat. He's called Trishanku, he's got two names. Trishanku, it's quite interesting. What is the meaning of Trishanku? I made some research. And basically, Trishanku means he's got three nails. Shanku means nail. Three. Because he's guilty of three faults. It's mentioned in verse 5 and 6. This is 7, the previous verse. He had faults. This is mentioned in Harivansh. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is going to quote from Harivansh. First fault, he displeased his father. His father was Tribandana. Then number 2, he killed the milking cow of the Guru. That's heavy. Can you imagine? We sing around Tulsi that even if I killed a cow or brahmana, it can be atoned if I circumambulate Tulsi. But it's a very severe, grievous sin. And then number 3, he enjoyed unsanctified items. If you take bhog, it's meant for Krishna. You take it, it's a major fault. Bhog is for Krishna. We are supposed to take prasadam. 3:13. What is that verse? Yagya Shishtashino Shantu Muchante Ksava Kilbishe Buyatete Dvagam Papam Ye Pachantatma Karanat. Devotees are called Santa because they only partake of the food offered to Lord Vishnu. That is why they are saintly and godly. Yagya Shishtashino Shantu Muchante Ksava Kilbishe. Then they can eradicate all types of faults. If you take the bhog directly, you open the fridge, just to nibble a little something, this is not good. So he did that also. These were his 3 faults. He was cursed by the father, Tribandana. Because of anger. Out of anger he was cursed. And on top of that, it's not finished. He stole the bride of a brahmana who was already married. So you can see that this is not Kali Yuga. This is way, way back. So the tendency, what are the 4 defects of the conditioned soul? Mistakes, illusion, vipralipsa. This is the strongest one. Vipralipsa means to steal, to how you call it, to abuse others, cheating propensity. So it was there. We are way back. We are, practically millions of years back. Then it's not finished. By Vishwamitra's power, Koshika Tejasa, it didn't fall, but remained in the sky. This is the state of affair. You can get away with murder in this. Even you can see in government level all over the world. They do not, severe mistakes, severe. Like cheating the people, looting the taxes, plotting so-called viruses and so-called danger. They are aggravating everything. And they get away with murder. So we ponder, where's the justice of Lord Krishna? So what would you say? What would you say? Apparently someone is committing mistake and is getting away with murder. How do you feel as a devotee? Vishwamitra intervened, and it doesn't fall down. It was cursed. It was meant to go down. It was already down in Rasakal, actually. But he would have ended up in Narak. He didn't go because Vishwamitra intervened. So we have to understand, it's a rhetorical question because you don't answer. I mean, first of all, 1323. Hanumanta, what is that verse? Thank you. Hanumanta, there's 3 things. Krishna is Hanumanta, witness, overseer, and he consents. He consents. Hanumanta, Bhakti Dvipa, I'm forgetting the verse. So it's meant to happen. Krishna is giving the green light for that. We have to tolerate, everything has a timing. Everything has a timing. You can see when Bali Maharaj, the grandson of Prahlad, took over. Brihaspati told him that this is not the time. You're not in favor now. This is not the time. Wait for your time. There's timing. So Lord Krishna knows the timings. He is behind. Kalosmi, Lokakshidakrit, Pravido. I'm time. I devour all the planets. Lokakshila-krit Pravido. So he has his own timing, it's a huge scale. We have tiny little portion of time. So, we are a bit impatient. What's happening is God doesn't so much overflow. 50 years down the road, 70 years down the road, after Prabhupada. Thomas Hopkins, he used to say, he was a great historian. I guess he's still around, I hope. PhD, very close to Prabhupada. And he used to remind the devotees, it takes so long. It takes any monotheistic religion 250 years to settle their rules. You take Islam, you take Christianity, you take Jewish. At least 150 years to settle the rules. He's an historian of religion. So don't complain so much. As 50, 70 years, Hare Krishna is kind of a household word. Sometimes not always in good terms, but at least people hear. So, we have to understand everything is happening. It doesn't mean, in the meantime, we should linger in this world. We have to nourish the drive to get out. While doing so, preaching and alleviating our state of affair and alleviating the state of others, but going towards the exit. And we should not linger. Coming to verse today, 7. So, on this today's verse, Vijayanath Chakravarti is saying, Vishwamitra stole everything belonging to Harishchandra. Very interesting. On one side, he's protecting him from. No, actually, we're talking about. Be careful here. This is not the same. Trishanku was cursed. Harishchandra was not cursed. So Vishwamitra stole everything belonging to Harishchandra on the pretext of taking donations at Rajasuya sacrifice. Hearing this, Vashisht became angry and cursed him to become an Adi bird. Vishwamitra cursed him to become a crane. So we can see, and this is the state of affair of today, even though they're such great souls. I mean, Vashisht is one of Saptarishi. Can you imagine? Vishwamitra is one of the Saptarishi. They have their own planet. They are patriarchs of the universe. There's 25 patriarchs in the universe. Out of 25, 7 are the Saptarishis. Jamadagni, Vashisht, Vishwamitra, and others. So, they are great souls, still they're fighting. And prior to this chapter, we discussed about Somani Muni. Somani Muni, remember, he was down the Yamuna or down the ocean, and he saw fish copulating. That agitated his mind. So we have to understand that we may claim, we may even show tremendous feats of material success, even spiritual success to some extent. But when it comes down to controlling the mind and senses, it's a different story. Sanat Kumar, he told his disciple Prithu, Yat pada pankaja palas bilasa bhaktya karma shayam gratitam ugratanti santaha shroto tavan nariktamatayo yatayo piruda shroto ganastamaranam bhajavasudevam. Beautiful verse. He explained that devotees, we are trained to be devotees. As long as we are engaged in the service of the toes, Sanat Kumar says, we have to serve the toes of the Lord, the Lord of these lotus feet. As long as we are engaged, then we can easily overcome the hard-knotted desire for kamashayam. Kamashayam is a heavy word in Sanskrit. It means, we find it also in one of the Mula mantra of Nrsimhadev. Om Namo Narashingaya Tejos No, not this one, sorry. In that verse there is Karmashayam. Karmashayam is the desire to be happy through material activities. It's a very broad spectrum, that word. As soon as you try to be happy, materially speaking, that's demonic. Can you imagine how wide is the definition of demonic? If you try to be happy by resorting to material activities, that's called Karmashaya. And in the mantra of Nishingadev it appears. So it says in that verse of Sanat Kumar that devotees, the grace of the Lord, there's one verse 264, look it up in the guitar, in the purport. Prabhupada says, no matter how much you are attached to this consciousness, and it's mentioned in 264 that if you follow the regulative principles, you attain freedom. Prabhupada writes in the purport, still 264, this consciousness of the Lord is always available to the devotee, no matter how much is attached to sense gratification. Very interesting sentence. In other words, the mercy of the Lord is always available to the devotee. Even though he may apparently having difficulty, because he's on the borderline. And there's another verse spoken by Lord Krishna to Uddhav. It's a beautiful verse, because this verse explains the psychology of a sadhaka. We are sadhakas. I'm not Raganuga Bhakta, I'm not a Bhav Bhakta, I'm not a Prem Bhakta. But we are sadhakas, isn't it? Kriti Sadhya, Bhavat Sadhyo, we have to engage the senses in the service of the Lord. That's our prerogative. That's our saving grace. If we stop engaging the senses, sadhaka means engage the senses in the service of the Lord, under Guru Shastra Sadhu. But while doing so, we are still being harassed by vasanas. Vasanas means previous desires, sanskar. We perform so much nonsense. It still lingers. So there's a verse. Lord Krishna explained what should be the psychology of a sadhaka. Listen, because it's quite mind-boggling. It's Bhagavatam, Uddhav Gita, 11, 20, 27 days. It's back to back, 27, 28. Jata Shraddho Matkatasu. As long as we have a taste for Krishna Katha, if we have awakened that in us, that will be our saving grace. Listen carefully. Nivinna Savakamasu. We are sadhakas. We are kind of liking Krishna Katha. But we should be also nirvana. Nirvana means disgusted with sense gratification. Kamasu. But then it goes, Veda dukkhamatmakam kamam parityage pyanisvaraha. But in the process, it's mentioned by Krishna, in the process of parityag, in the process of renouncing, there is still kaman. Kaman means calm. All types of kaman are there. So what happens is, we know, intellectually speaking, philosophically speaking, we know that sense gratification leads to no good. No one can deny. No one's going to say it the other way. But sometimes anisvaraha means we are somewhat, not all the time, but at times we are unable. We are unable to stop. Even though it says here, Sanat Kumar says it's easy for devotees to stop the hard-knotted desires for sense gratification. Very difficult for the jnanis, for the tapasvi, for the yogis. But for devotees, it's piece of cake. Well, if you ask me, it's not. Of course, Sanat Kumar is talking about Prithu, he's telling Prithu. Prithu is himself incarnation of the Lord. But when it comes to daily life, is it piece of cake? years after years, decades after decades. So Krishna is more understanding because he's saying in that verse, Uddhav Gita, he says, he's speaking to Uddhav, at times Sadaka is unable to resist. And even you will see, he succumbs. He succumbs. Listen to the rest. Tata bhajita mam prita. He has faith. Yes, I should worship Krishna. And Krishna says, Mam prita, he should carry on worshipping me. It's a bit like the verse 930. Remember? Apichat sudaracharo, bhajate ananyabhak, sadureva samantavya, samyak vavasito visaha. Even if he commits the most of his activities, he remains a sadhu. Arjuna doesn't agree at this stage in the Gita. Of course, Prabhupada didn't reveal that, but there's a conversation here. Vishwanath Baladev Vijayabhushan reveals that they're having some inner conversation between Arjuna and Krishna. Arjuna doesn't agree. He said, no way. If he's a sadhu, yes. But he falls down, apichet sudaracharo, abominable activities, sorry Krishna. I don't agree. Krishna has to raise the voice. Kontaya pratajanihi, nani bhakta pranashati. 931. Proclaim it loud and clear, Arjuna. You come out with kartals and you proclaim to the world, my devotees will never perish. And then Arjuna goes, why don't you say it yourself, Krishna? You can proclaim it yourself. They're very close. They are intimate associates. And then Krishna, what does he answer? Sometimes I break my promise. You have seen in the case of Bhishma in the Mahabharata. Remember? He broke this promise. And Bhishma forced Krishna to intervene. He was going to kill Arjuna. Arjuna is a little boy compared to Bhishma. Prabhupada is saying, even Bhim is a fig compared to Bhishma. He's a fig. What? You understand? Bhishma? I read two versions. It's at least 200 years. Some people say 450 years during the time of Battle of Puri. He never lost a fight. He's a Mahajan. Pandavas are little boys compared to Krishna. Krishna knows. And that day he resolved, I'm going to kill him. He told Duryodhana the night before. So it's very interesting. Krishna has to step out to kill Bhishma, otherwise he's going to kill his friend Arjuna. And Arjuna is grabbing him back. I don't want you to break your promise. So it's like devotees fighting each other to make Krishna break his promise. One doesn't want Krishna to break his promise, the other wants Krishna to break his promise. This is love, actually. So Krishna breaks his promise at times for the sake of protecting his devotees. So that is why Krishna is telling Arjuna 931, Kontaya pratajanihi nalibhakta pranashati. You take that vow. So now go back to that verse 11, 20, 27, 28. It says there, we like to hear Krishna Katha. We are nirvinna, sarvakamams. We are disgusted with sense gratification. Vedha, dukhatma. Duk means misery. We know it's going to lead to miseries. We have done it. We know. We have first-hand experience. But at times, even though in the parityag, in the process of renunciation, anusvaraha, we become unable. Then Krishna goes on to say, even though he is sometimes engaged in sense gratification, my devotee knows that all sense gratification leads to a miserable result, and he sincerely repents such activities. So this is the state of affair of the sadhaka. This is our state of affair. It's a struggle. We should not deny it. Oh no, Prabhu, I'm doing fine. Well, we're on the same boat. You think if there is seasickness, or only one person is seasick and the other is not seasick? Perhaps less seasick, okay, but seasickness will not spare anyone. If the boat is at storm, out in the sea, everyone is throwing up. Does it mean we should jump outside the boat? No. So this is the state of affair of our condition in Krishna consciousness, sadhaka. But we should not. 231, Prabhupada says, beautiful verse. 231 is the verse that has been picked up by the GBC when it comes to helping struggling devotees. You know, because long back in the GBC they were pondering what to do with fallen devotees or devotees having difficulty. What to do with them? Not only one or two, quite a few. So they picked up that verse. 231. And in the verse, Prabhupada says at the bottom, it says that the devotee should not fall into hopelessness, despair. Same point here in that Uddhav Gita. He should carry on with great faith and conviction. Fall down, get up, carry on. Don't look, this is another trick of mine. I'm morose, hopelessness, I cannot make it, let me leave this movement. I'm too fallen, Prabhu, don't you understand? That's another trick of mine. Because there's one verse, you know, any name of Krishna chanted purely can eradicate any hips, whatever, of sinful acts. Even big as a mountain. One single name. So we have to help each other. Prabhupada explained a beautiful remedy. He says we have to discuss amongst ourselves about the pessimistic nature of the material world. Beautiful remedy. That's what we're doing in the Bhagavatam class. We are reminding each other from different angles of vision, you know. It's pessimistic. Prabhupada says the ugly mask of material nature. It's a beautiful saying. The ugly mask of material nature. Even though it looks gorgeous, you go on the Riviera, you go in California, it's gorgeous. Hawaii, gorgeous. Even France is gorgeous. My grandma used to say, this is the most beautiful country I've seen, France. But at the same time, this is the ugly mask of material nature. You know, Prabhupada is down to earth. He's extremely pragmatic. Very pragmatic. He knows where we stand. So any little glimpse, again, we are back into the process of degradation. Even one sense roaming away will bring down the fall of the living entity. So we are, like Prabhupada said, we are basically on a razor's edge. But we should not lament in the sense that as long as we stick to the process, devotees association. And Lord Krishna, you have seen so merciful. He knows. We are sadhaka, we are struggling. My Guru Maharaj used to say, don't look at the beginning, look at the end. When we die, when we leave the body, this is, Bhakti Thakur used to say, this is when you should draw a conclusion on your deathbed. You know, if you draw a conclusion after 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, well, Prabhu, I'm not doing so well, even after 30 years, even after 40 years. No, draw the conclusion on your deathbed. Because there's one beautiful story, you know. Dinabandhu, you know, in Vrindavan, he told us the story. I was 10 years in Vrindavan, so I had lots of association with him. You have been to Terkadamba? Terkadamba? It's a beautiful place. This is the place where Rupa Goswami finished writing Bhakti Rasamritindu. It took him 7 years. Some people say 7 years, some people say 17 years. He finished writing in 1541. I mean, this place is sacred. It's not even touched as yet by downtown Vrindavan. If you go to ISKCON, you have seen, as soon as you come out, honking and blasting, and it's somewhat touched by Kali. You have seen, when you were going in Vrindavan in mid-80s, it was a different story. What to speak of Prabhupada in the 70s, it must have been very calm. But if you go inland, you can still find the sanctity of the holy Dham. Terkadamba is such a place. So there was one pujari there, lifelong pujari. And of course, Dinabandhu has been around, he's been in Vrindavan from the 70s or something. Actually, he told me his Dham Guru was Panmalochan. You know Panmalochan? He left the body. Panmalochan Prabhu was extremely good in Dham, Vrindavan Dham, Maya. He would write books on all the Lila Stan of the Dhams, And Dinabandhu told us, he is my Dham Guru. Dham Guru is called. He's been taught about the Dham. You have a Dham Guru. You have a Shastra Guru, Diksha Guru, Shiksha Guru, Vatma Padashaka Guru, Shetya Guru. There's Dham Guru. So Dinabandhu told us, my Dham Guru is Panmalochan. Panmalochan landed in 2010 in Mayapur. British devotee. So to go back to the story, Dinabandhu has been around for at least, I would say, 40, 50 years. And he used to, of course, all these places he knows so much. He speaks Brajbasi, so he can associate with locals, There was one pujari, lifelong pujari, old. And at the fag of his life, that pujari started to lament a little bit. He was sharing with his friends, pujari and local devotees, I've been serving all my life. Not even one glimpse of Krishna. Not even one, it's called Lila Spurti, like little glimpse into the Lila. That's already quite high, But he was kind of lamenting like this. No reciprocation of Lord Krishna. So devotees, they would tell him, Baba, you're doing fine, you've been serving all your life. You live in the Dham, what to speak of your next destination, everyone knows you. Going back. Yeah, but still no reciprocation, And he was kind of hooked up on this. One day, what did he decide? He decided to leave his service. So can you imagine? He's been serving all his life. Decades of puja. 60, 70 years of puja. Fixed up. Nishta bhakta. So they tried to talk him out of it. Don't do it. No, sorry, I had enough. Dinabandhu is such a good storyteller. You have to understand. I'm nowhere near to compare to him. And then he told us the story, because actually he used to know that person, and that person told him the story. He used to know the person face to face. So that devotee resolves, I'm going to live. He's leaving the place. He's walking out of the temple. You have seen Chakanaba, it's dirty, not dirty, sandy pathways, it's nothing, no concrete, nothing. Of course, I haven't gone there for a while, perhaps that's changed now. I hope not. So he's walking out, and the pujaris are standing out on the pathway. Please come back. The kids are there. So many kids are running. Please, Baba, come back, come back, come back. He's walking out. And they're pleading to him, please come back. We want you back. Then he turned his face like this towards the group of devotees. Whom does he see amongst the devotees? Krishna Balaram. He sees Krishna Balaram in the groups of devotees, pleading him to come back. He faints. He faints. They ask Krishna Balaram, amongst the other devotees, are asking him, please come back. He faints. He's brought back to the temple. Back to his consciousness. He shares what happened. He leaves his body. See? So we should not lose hope. Of course, we may say they don't live in Dvakananda, but this is only Dham. It's not different. Everything. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudamudachyate. It's all one. That's not Krishna is less here than Vrindavan. What is this nonsense? Haridam means holy Dham. It's all one. It's transcendental mathematics. 1 + 1 = 1. 1 - 1 = 1. You cannot take out from Krishna. So, So this is a beautiful story. We should remember that story when we're having difficulties. We are on the good path, and it takes time, anartha nivritti. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explained, instead of focusing on anartha nivritti, we should focus on artha pravritti. You understand? Anartha nivritti, we are trying to remove the anarthas. Anartha means impurities, not wanted. Artha means value. Anartha, unvalue, no value. Anartha nivritti, cessation of anarthas. It's a long haul. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, reverse it. Reverse it. Concentrate on artha pravritti. Artha pravritti means you concentrate on the value things. Krishna Katha, Jata, Shraddha, Mad Katasu, Krishna Katha, puja, chanting. We concentrate on this. We don't concentrate on the anarthas. Because if you look at yourself, you may become despondent. Because, let's face it, Prabhupada used to say you are like coal. Can you imagine? Charbon. You're like coal. Have you tried to clean coal? Try to take a piece of coal and rub it. Is it still black or not? So it doesn't mean we it's a long haul. Even if it takes 2 lives, 3 lives, so what? Doesn't matter. At least we're on the right path. And we have, of course, as we grow in age, we have to intensify because death is looming over. And of course, we should not be afraid. What does Krishna says in the Gita on death? Yes, he's saying death, I'm death. Personified. What is that? Was Mrityu Shahas? Mrityu Shaham. So I'm death. So people don't want to surrender to Krishna. I won't bow down. But they're going to have to bow down to even Dandavat when they fall flat. You are the loser. So better we be the winner. It's a win-win process. Instead of people are thinking, it's a win-lose process. Krishna is winning and we are losing. No, it's a win-win process. Krishna wants us back. So he wants us back, and he's trying, he's sending us help to even if we have difficulties. Doesn't mean we are doomed. Just like, you may have difficulty, anyone has difficulty. You take a tennis player, you think they're always first-class tennis player? They have difficulties in their career. You take a pianist, you take a CEO running his company. You think his company is going to be soaring high all the time? He's having difficulty. So anyone who practices something will have difficulty. Difficulty is part of the process. If we wouldn't have difficulty, then we wouldn't be a sadhaka. We'd be at least nishtha. Beyond nishtha, ruchi, ashakti, that's fine. That's over the hurdle. Because once we are nishtha, then everything starts to become rosy. Ashakti, Ashtu Krishna, ruchi, taste, bhav, prem. You may have some tiny anarthas lingering, but the main anarthas are gone. But, so we should not be despaired. And all the shastras are replete with good advice and stuff. So. But again, we should be pessimistic towards the material life. As soon as we still contemplate, perhaps there's one option here, let me try. That's going to slow down. There's no option. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. If you have any questions. Gandhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
So what was the name of this pujari?
Oh, I don't remember. Yeah, as Dinamado is still alive. He's not doing well, but I didn't see him in Vrindavan yesterday. Dinamado will tell you. Dinamado is like it's like a gulab jamun. You just press. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki.
You went to India recently?
February, I was in India. 3 weeks only.
Any nice remembering? Events? Such a long time we didn't go, so.
Yeah. Let me step up first. Well, it's much more, I would say, the parameter of this phenomenon is quite well fenced off now. You know, before it was a bit wild, we didn't know exactly where the entrance, where the exit is. Now it's very well delineated, beautiful ornate grills, etc.